Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast with your host, Brett Bovin. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the show.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Bovin, and we're back at it again. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in for tonight's show. If this is your first time tuning in, we do a live show. We used to do it Monday through Wednesday, but we're going to be changing things up. We're going to be doing it on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And each week we cover a new state. This was Minnesota. This was Montana week. But tonight we got a guest from Michigan, a homegrown state here, and excited to get with him. We'll get to him here in a second. But like I said, if this is your first time tuning in, I ask everyone out there that can put a quarter in the slot machine. And what I mean by that is I believe hunting is a dying sport, a dying lifestyle. And the more you can help share the show, that's all I ask. Help share the show, help get us a new friend, and spread the word about hunting, because eventually, if the numbers are showing up the way they are, eventually there's going to be no more hunters, and it's just going to be a bad thing. And besides, hunting is not just out there trying to kill the animals. It's just the camaraderie with friends and family. And that's what I love most about hunting. I love getting out there and getting deer and being out in the woods. It's peaceful, but the camaraderie with friends and family, that's the best thing, and the connection with everybody else. So put your quarter in the slot machine, help share a show. That's all I ask. And we are the part of the pro staff team with Ghillie Puck. So use the code GP10, GP10, get 10% discount products at Ghillie Puck. And with that being said, I will run a quick little video for him. So like I said, use the code GP10, GP10, get 10% discount off the products. Also, go check out MAGNUS Broadheads and Grizz Media. And today we launched our very first episode with Carbon TV. So go check them out. Check our episodes out there. We'll be releasing one, I believe, every other day. Our first one with them is episode 13. If you can give us a positive review, it'd be greatly appreciated. But with enough of my blibber blabber bullshit, let's get in with tonight's show. Since this is a live show, we always do the live shows. Feel free to ask questions through the comments, and we'll pop them up during the screen, and we'll go on with the show. But like I said, this was Montana week, and we're in Michigan for tonight. We have a great guest, so let's welcome in Jake. What's up, brother?
What's going on, man? Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on the show, man. Did you have a good day?
I did. Yeah, good. Knocked out a good day at work, and then came home and cut up a tree and took the brush and threw it in the burn pit. So I got some stuff done around the farm too.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I went out to work and I played a little golf with my dad tonight, and I was just happy to be outside playing some golf in decent weather and not playing in the devil's ball sack.
Yeah, it's been hot.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, here in Michigan, last week, I think it was close damn near to 100 degrees almost. I think the highest I saw was 97.
Yeah, I think the highest ice is 94, something like that, one or 2 days. So yeah, that's scorching for up here. And the humidity on top of it was what made it so miserable.
Yeah, the other day we had that storm come through, and it was just, you went outside and you just felt instantly sticky. Like, I just need to take a shower because I just feel gross and clammy.
Yeah.
But with that being said, man, thanks for coming on the show. For anyone that doesn't know you, can you give a little background about yourself?
Oh, Jake Bollinger, born and raised in lower mid-Michigan, Jackson County, Washtenaw County area. And I've been hunting since, I was allowed in Michigan, 14 years old, 12-year-old with the bow on my own and 14 with the gun on my own, but hunted with my grandpa, my brother a bit before that, just sitting shotgun. So, and now in Jackson County on my own little farm and turn it into my own little slice of heaven, year by year, little by little.
Now, for anyone that doesn't know, Jackson County is like prime real estate area that you want to have for the odds of shooting a mature giant deer. Jackson County is going to be the one we want to get into.
Yeah, there's, I call it the golden quadrangle, Jackson County, Washtenaw County, Hillsdale, and Lenawee. If you look at, any record books or whatever, that's where the vast majority of them come from. It's, primarily ag, especially where I'm at. There's not a whole lot of big timber north of the 94. There is some big blocks of timber, but where I'm at, it's mostly ag land.
Now, I don't want to get too close to where you live or anything like that, but I got to ask, how close are you to Ted Nugent's safari land?
Oh, shoot, I'm probably 45 minutes an hour away. It's on the opposite side.
So it's not that far of a drive.
No, it's not too far. No, not far at all.
I'm starting a new thing for tonight. I like to start off by asking a little background about who you are and what type of gear are you running with everything that you're using.
I run a little bit of everything. I haven't got into the saddle world yet, although that's something I might be getting into a little bit. But I still run an old school Lone Wolf Alpha as my little mobile setup with sticks, and pretty much everything else other than that is lock-ons of all different varieties and makes and shapes and forms, and tree sticks, pegs, whatever I have to do to get into places. And then I got a few like actual blinds, wood blinds that I'd like to take the kids to and stuff.
Now, the type of preset stands that I used to have ladder stands from Millennium. That's generally where I get all my tree stands from. I just love their seats and everything about them. The setup's easy with all of them.
Yeah.
But I will say this. I tried the 360 out. The very first one was like 2-3 years ago or something like that. I will say this. It was a mother effort to get up in the tree. You need two people. I think they say you can use one person, but you need two.
Right.
It's hard. It takes a minute to get set up because it's got 3 anchor points to the tree. But once you get it into the setup on the tree, that thing is just freaking a beautiful tree stand, and I love it. I sit in that thing all the time. And
a pretty cool setup.
Oh, I love it. I've got 2 now, and I wish I can get more, but those things are like $400 just for the actual platform, not including the sticks or anything like that on top of it.
Oh, wow. Right. Yeah, that can add up in a hurry. And that's why I think really the main reason why I haven't jumped into saddle hunting yet. I've got my system kind of set up where I'll put up my lock-ons or whatever where I want to start the season, and then I just kind of hop around from there with my Lone Wolf setup to dial it in if I have to or make a move. But like even my bow is an old Matthews Z7 Extreme, still does the job. It's one of my favorite bows. I love it. So I just haven't felt the need of buying a new one.
Yeah, I was going through to be a little stalkerish, if you want to call it that. I was looking at your bow and I was like, man, that's an old Matthews. I couldn't tell exactly what it was. I figured it was a Matthews Monster, but I was like, man, that's old school with Matthews bow right there.
Yeah, it's pretty. I've been shooting Matthews since the original Solo Cam Shadow, and yeah, I've loved it. I absolutely love that bow, and I'm just so comfortable and confident with it now. I'm like, man, I don't really want to buy anything else. And it's funny because like when I go to bow shoots and stuff, how many people recognize that bow? Apparently, it's very highly ranked in Matthews lineup through history or whatever, but I guess that's why I like it so much. I know it's very forgiving and shoots real good for me.
Hey, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Absolutely. I'm not one of them that gets hung up and has to have brand new gear every year for sure. If I got confidence in it, that's what I'll run.
Now, don't hate me or anything. I had the Matthews Verdicts and it was shooting great and everything like that. Don't get me wrong, I loved it. But I made a deal with the wife that when tax season came around this year was, all right, I'm going to get all the bells and whistles. This can be my last bow. So I wanted a little upgrade. I was very looking forward for the Matthews Lift. Shot that thing. And at first I got caught up with everything. But then once I took a step back, I was like, man, this bow fucking sucks, man. Have you shot it or not?
No, and that's one of the reasons why I haven't shot new bows, because I know that's what is going to wind up finally sealing the deal of buying something new.
Yeah, I'll tell you this: if you're gonna go and try a new bow out or whatever, and Matthews kind of sounds like the one that you like to generally go with, it sucks. I'm gonna tell you that it's light. Don't get me wrong, but as soon as you start pulling back, it is fighting you all the way. It wants to
Oh,
yank you forward. And as soon as you start getting into that back wall, you feel that lump getting in,
wow.
set in there. And then even when you're back there, it just really wants to pull you. And I'm not a
Interesting.
weak dude. I'm fairly in shape, strong guy, but I was just like, and I just locked in, and I'm like, man, I really got to hold this thing right here just to shoot it. And then
Wow.
once you shoot it, and then I started thinking, you take this out in the field, if you're new to hunting, or even if you have the years of experience like I have, you gotta start thinking, all right, what if I get stuck in a position where I have a deer at 5 minutes, I have to hold it, you're screwed.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
I ended up
absolutely.
going with the Matthews 4.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's funny. That's one of the reasons why I shoot a little bit lighter poundage, because I found myself just way more confident and way more accurate in field situations, dropping down 5 pounds. I think I'm only pulling 65 or 66 pounds. And I definitely like that lower weight so I can hold it back and not shake at all and lock in. I like to lock my thumb on the back of my neck if I have to, while I'm waiting for a while. And yeah, I wouldn't like that one bit.
No, it sucks. And not to interrupt or anything, Vital Seeds made a comment here. He said, "What's up, Jake? I'm still using the Healy M, LOL."
Oh, yeah, the old helium. Nice. Those are great bows too. That's Al. Nice. Good to see you on, Al.
Yeah, I just love bow hunting, and I'll never hunt with a gun. Never have, never will. Even the day I can't physically draw back a bow, I'll be that guy and pick up a crossbow. I know that's a huge debate right now, but that will be the only time, and that's the only time I feel acceptable for people to shoot a crossbow that physically can't.
Right. Yeah, I'm kind of on the same. I know it's a controversial topic, but yeah, I'm on the same length as you. The middle-aged guys using crossbows kind of irks me, but you know what? It's not for me to say, so I just leave it at that.
Right? You're shooting up to almost 100 yards, and
Right.
these are generally mainly people that hunters that are gun hunters, so they just want to get into the archery season. And like I said, I don't care. We said what we want here on the show, but in my opinion, that's like really you're kind of cheating in a way. So you're gonna shoot up to 100 yards with pinpoint dime size accuracy with these things, and I have to do it with my bow. It's still
Yes.
kind of it's a hot topic, like you said. And
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just like I'm in the all weapon zone for muzzleloader, and I'll be the first to say, I've taken my 450 out and I've shot one, and I remember as soon as I shot one, I was like, man, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Because I used to love muzzleloader season because it would be just me and the muzzleloader in the area or me and with my bow. That's why I really like late season. But yeah, it's the same kind of situation to me is what weapons should be used when and how long. It just makes the season so long in Michigan now.
yeah, and I think any state, because it sounds like it's not just here in Michigan, but almost all across the country, where I've been listening to people talk, and it's more like it needs to have its own separate part of the season with archery and not involved with archery season. And unless you have like a license or something that says you physically can't draw one, so you can only use it on an archery season, I'm sure there's some regulation that could be made. But yeah, I feel like it should have its own separate season.
Yeah, it'd be a nightmare for them to enforce at this point, trying to have separate seasons and everything. And that's why I'm sure they're not wanting to go back on what they've started.
Right. And I did want to ask, it looks like you're using the same bow that you're hunting with turkeys and deer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I use the same setup. Yeah. I mean, when I can sit in my backyard and be very confident out to 80 yards, to me, when I set up on turkeys at 20 yards, you got a pretty good chance of hitting it. 2-inch circle or whatever at 20 yards. Any archer, to me at least, should be proficient enough to hit that pretty well. And yeah, I love it, man. I just started turkey hunting 2 years ago. Actually, never turkey hunted at all. Self-taught on a call, and decided there's a few turkeys around. I'm chasing with my bow. It's going to be bow or nothing. And it's funny because you mentioned that you don't gun hunt. I do gun hunt a little bit, but I do favor my bow way more. And after I shot another turkey this year with my bow, I kind of was like, man, I just like the bow way better. I might not even gun hunt this year and just set up just for bow because I do get more satisfaction, I guess, getting close rather than how far or whatever. So
Yeah, that's bow hunting. It's just the connection you get with everything, and you have to get it's a very personal thing. And I'm not saying, oh, you can't get close to a deer with a gun. Yeah,
Right.
it
Yeah.
happens, but
Yep.
you have to get at least 40 yards generally. You can't just, oh, they're 100 yards away, so I can take a shot. And it's just, I can basically tell you every detail about every deer that I've shot because it's just up close, personal, and that's why I love it the most. And I had a question with that is, excuse me, you're not changing anything on your bow when it comes to the turkey season and using it for the deer. You're strictly just
Nope.
using the same setup for everything.
Same setup, everything. I still use my Muzzy MX4s. Yeah, I don't change nothing. I go straight for I watched some hillbilly talking about bow hunting for turkeys, and he was just hilarious. It was just some random video I found on YouTube, and it was real backwoods. But he mentioned like the three feathers coming together when a tom is full strut, and that's where you want to aim with your bow. Slightly back from that, just tiny bit. And on the very first hunt, I saw that, and I was like, wow, holy cow, that. And being able to be confident at 20 yards to hit that 2-inch circle, I figure why change setups, when I'm so confident with my arrow hitting where I'm going. It's all it's got to do, especially on a turkey, right? You hit the vitals and you're taking it out. So yeah, I just keep the same exact setup and just practice all year. I never not shoot my bow. I shoot several times almost every day, every couple of days, if not. And yeah, very confident in it. So I just use it.
I just be curious because you see it nowadays where, especially with Magnus, and go check out Magnus Broadheads if you haven't yet. Anyways, usually you see a lot of people, they'll put those really big broadheads on it, so they gotta get longer arrows so it kind of can I wouldn't say mess up, but you have to do some tinkering with your bow. So you kind of have to go back and forth, in my opinion. So that was why I was kind of asking. You're kind of using the same thing, not changing anything.
Nope. Yep. Using the same exact thing. As a matter of fact, I shot a buck with my bow and the arrow, and then the turkey, I shot my very first ever turkey with that same exact arrow. So yeah, no, I'm not changing anything. Yeah.
So I was looking, you're also a NDA deer steward.
Yep. Did that for fun. Bought the farm here and knew that I was going to be converting a lot of it from ag into, wildlife habitat. And I thought it was one of those things of, I want to do this myself. Of course, researching and listening to people on YouTube and reading books and all that kind of stuff. I'm not, learning or reinventing the wheel, but I wanted to hear it from some of the professionals and studies on certain things, browse species and, how to set up edge and stuff like that. And that seemed like the best route for me to go to see, to actually be able to see things and get exposed to things. And of course, I do a few habitat days, like some of the local Michigan pages do habitat days and stuff. I like to attend those kind of things. Attended a few MUCC things. So it was just a cool avenue, I thought, to give into an organization that's studying and trying to help us learn deer in ways that we can't learn it, just out in the field. And thought that was a great way to kind of go into getting habitat. I had a habitat bug for years, but it's just been tinkering with fun things here and there and just kind of messing with stuff. And it felt like the next step to learn and actually apply it the right way and not make mistakes with thousands of dollars of trees and bushes and switchgrass seed and everything else, So yeah, I learned a lot. They were great courses.
What was the process like for someone that doesn't know about it or wanting to possibly do that?
So the Deer Steward 1 course that I took was all online modules. So you could kind of do it on your own, as you wanted to. And I just blew through mine as quick as possible because I wanted to be ready for the Deer Steward 2 that was closest. And then the Deer Steward 2 was in person. And you just go and attend those several days of classes and modules and stuff. And it was a ton of fun. Got to meet a lot of people, networking with people from all over the country, got to learn how they hunt compared to how I hunt. It was a lot of fun.
How much did it cost?
The Deer Steward 1 was only like 150, but 2 was like 1,500.
Deer
so it's an investment.
$1,500.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, $1,000, something like that.
For anyone that hears that price point, is it worth it then?
With what is on YouTube now, I would say no. You just have to be willing to sink the time into it. But if you are doing it as a job, as a profession, I think it would be worth it, just because of some of the techniques that they were talking about that I just don't have the area or the need to apply. So I could see how some of the other people that are doing it for a living, that would be a huge benefit. Same with like Tony LaPrat's courses. It just gives you more ideas, right, of what you can apply in certain situations. I only see the 300 and 400 acres that I get to, roam around on. That's not nearly enough to apply to everything, So I definitely see there's value in it for some people. But if you're just doing it on your own, I think there's enough resources, like, my Habitat podcast chat and stuff like that. That is an awesome resource of all kinds of people from all over. So you can learn so much more, I think, now, in the last few years than you could, 4 or 5 years ago even.
Is it at least worth it maybe to at least do the $150 one, the Steward one?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially when it talks about like the browse. Like I'm a huge journal guy when I hunt, when I scout, when I'm out velvet cruising. I write like ridiculous details down, and then I'll go back to those places and look to see what were they even there for. Some of it, of course, is obvious. They're in a soybean field. They're there for the soybeans. But like certain CRP areas and stuff that I have around, and then I would look at the browse of what they were, nipping off. And I don't know all of them still by heart. I use a identity app or whatever it's called and look at it. But those sections about how the deer browse and use certain species at certain times of the year was like a light bulb for me. It was like, okay, now some of the stuff that I've been journaling and things I've been seeing patterns on kind of makes more sense of what they were doing there then and why they weren't there, later or whatever. So yeah, there was definitely some benefit in that cheap one. And of course, deer anatomy and a few other things. And it goes to your Deer Steward membership or your NDA membership also. So that one is definitely, I would say anybody could glean information out of that for sure.
And I saw your photo, and I love the deer anatomy only just in general, but I strongly believe if you know the deer inside and out, and then you move it out to what they're doing day to day, month to month, and year to year, you can basically be the best hunter there is because you know everything it is. You know your opponent basically. I always look at it as it's me versus the deer. It's not just me out hunting. It's how can I beat these motherfuckers? And me, it's that's how I study their film basically. And I saw your photo here, and I knew this already about their eyes, how their pupil was horizontal. But just to read this real quick, you posted deer see movement 4 times the speed of humans, essentially seeing our world in slow motion. Whitetails have pupils that are elliptical, cat eyes. The pupil extends the full width of their eyes and horizontal. They have a 20 to 60 vision, which means humans see 3 times clearer images from the same distance, but they can see 8 times better at low light. Deer see blue 20 times better than humans, and red and oranges are brown and gray to them.
Yeah, and that's all stuff that came from the NDA Steward stuff. I was reposting like facts I had learned because to me it was like, mind blowing, I guess, if you will, when you start thinking about that kind of stuff. And then it all made sense of how many times we sat in trees, or I've sat in a tree and wondered how in the world did those deer get through that little thicket as fast as they did without, whacking branches or whatever. Well, then of course, then you start hearing about how they process, how the cones and stuff process in their eyes. And it was like, well, now this makes sense of why they can do what they can do. It was just kind of that little light bulb for me. Exactly. Hey, do you mind if I turn on my light real quick? I just realized I feel like I'm in a dungeon all of a sudden when the sun went down.
Well, since you asked, I'm going to say no.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
I'll be back second.
And we'll just sit here and, well, there we go.
I got a spotlight on.
Can you turn it a little? No, there we go. There we go. Now better? We don't have a spotlight.
All right, yeah. Sorry. It got real dark real fast when that sun went down.
I hope you tell everyone you're sorry because you just wasted about 20 seconds of our life for that. Just
You'll never get that back.
No, but then you're right. It makes sense. Like I said, if you know them in and out, you're going to start seeing out real world situations of why they're doing certain things, and it's going to start clicking in your head of, oh, that makes sense of why that happened or why they're doing this, and that makes sense of, like, for instance, their eyes, like we said, they're horizontal. That's why they're constantly like moving up and down, like vertically, because they're trying to be on the same plane basically as you, and they're trying to catch some movement.
Yep, that's why they can pick you out. Just that tiny little bit of movement, they see that, and we don't think that we're moving that fast. To them, it's quick movement. So,
And then I
Fred Bear was
swear,
right. Sit down and be quiet and don't move.
and like I said, I swear I can blink and a doe is going to look up at me like, what the fuck was that? Oh,
Yeah.
there's somebody there. I'm running away. And I'm telling you
I'm a
right now,
firm believer that they have some kind of weird sense of predator eyes when it locks on. I just have had too many of those encounters where it's like they can only see my eyes, and they busted me. Yeah, I think there's something to that.
and I'm not ashamed of saying this. And granted, that there's times I won't shoot a deer, and times a doe, I mean, and times I will. But I'm going on to my 18th year of hunting. I have yet to put my tag on a doe.
Really
Yeah.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid.
I'm not afraid to shoot them. So like, I know through the timing of everything that the fawns or the yearlings, they can live on their own away from the does, the mothers, stuff like that. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, and just how I grew up and stuff like that, we basically made it like a family law where you see a doe come out, you gotta wait at least a couple seconds to a minute, and if something pops up with them as yearlings, fawns, whatever, then that one's off limits. And it seems like every time I see a doe, they're right there next to him.
Yeah,
And
family group.
and then the few times I do see a single doe or a group of just giant does, I'm like, well, I can't get one doe to come out all by itself because you see two or more, they're all eyes are just like zooming everywhere. So I just can't get I'm stumped. I just can't do it, man.
Yeah, I wait till late season for all the doe harvest really around here. Just easier to deal with for me because I process them myself. I don't want to try to deal with that in September or whatever when early doe season is, or early October when it's 75 or whatever. But by that late season, I'm not picky. If it's at least it's not a fawn, I'll take a couple of them out, fill the freezer, and help the population. And I donate quite a bit to the Hunter Against Hunger program that Michigan has. So that's always a good way to fill a few tags and get some of the does and mouse out of there.
I like saving. Well, I wouldn't say saving, but I don't like shooting the does early season because I like them staying around to get the rut going. That's kind of like a controversial topic or a controversial like why or not should you not type of deal.
Yeah, but there's another thing that ties back to the NDA stuff. They talk about the population, and if there's so many does, and it makes sense. I think we've all seen it when several does are in heat, the bucks aren't running nearly as much, and it's not as hard for them to find the doe. So they're not searching quite as often. And then as in the doe population gets less, they have to look for them and search them out. So I don't know. I can't say one way or the other. The research says it's that way, off of collared deer or whatever. But I don't mind seeing a bunch of deer too. Like, when I'm out hunting, I also very much enjoy seeing the wildlife. So I don't want, just to see 4 or 5 deer. It is real nice when it's, you get to see a whole bale herd of does too. So I don't want to nuke them off either. But
right. Yeah. Half the time I'll go out there hunting and my wife will be like, "Do you see anything?" I said, "Yeah, I saw a bunch of deer tonight." She goes, "You didn't get anything?" I said, "No, but I just love seeing all the deer movement. I get more sad when I don't see shit."
Right.
Than anything.
Yeah. Any animals. I enjoy watching any animals, even the raccoon out there, doing whatever it's doing. It's enjoyable to watch that stuff.
Except for the squirrels, man. Fuck those little bastards. I hate those because it happens every year and it happens almost every day where you're sitting in your stand and you're like, all right, you hear a crunch and it's like a fat little squirrel too. And it takes a step, it takes a little another one, and it just hops. So you're thinking, oh, it's a deer. Then you're waiting for seems like forever. And then you turn around, it's just one little fat fuck just sitting right there looking up at you. And I'm like, you son of a bitch.
We've all been fooled by a squirrel now and then. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, I can't stand those, but a little weird rabbit hole. But anyways, so land management, you're with Vitalized Seed, correct? Or
I'm a dealer for them. Yep. Just started that this year. Yeah, I've used the product for, this will be my fourth summer or third summer. I think it's my third summer, and loved it ever since. And I'm on sandy, rocky soil, and it's done real well for me. So I just decided, and plus I really like listening to Al. He's actually the one that chimed in earlier. I believe that's him at least, and love listening to him just because of how intelligent he is. So it's just one of those things that I started getting drawn to and listen to what they have to say, and bought into what they were doing with the soil rebuilding and feeding deer at the same time. To me, that felt like, a win-win. Again, another part of conserving the land and feeding. I get turkeys in it all the time too. So it's not like it's just whitetails that are benefiting from it. So I thought, it's a good way that I could get that out to other people. And, in this area, there's a lot of people that do food plots, and thought that's needed in my area because there wasn't a dealer real close. And, so far it's working out okay. And hopefully this fall, everybody will get back after it and get some of that carbon load put in, because that's going to be prime for everybody.
So for anyone that has no clue and they're just they just starting off trying to learn land management and food plots, stuff like that, what's some information you can give them, or what can you start to teach them right here?
The first, I'd say, if they're just getting into it, don't look online and see that everybody's using all kinds of fancy new equipment, or specialized, or you have to have tractors or anything like that. I started off with some, all by hand, or just some crazy contraptions, whatever worked. It doesn't have to be pretty, right? As long as it functions or does what you need it to do. Especially with nowadays and like the no-till systems. Here's, another roll into the Vitalize. It's a perfect system to do into thatch layer. So you don't even have to till the ground. So you can go out there with a weed whipper and a sprayer and do, the prep if you that's what you want to do, or that's what you have to work with. And it works out great. That was the very first plot I put in of Vitalize. That's exactly how I did it. Was weed whip down the tall weeds, and then a couple weeks later sprayed it all off and broadcasted, and it worked out good. So don't think you have to go into planting 20 acres either, because you'll see crazy out there that are just planting acres upon acres. Plant what's manageable, get yourself into it, and weed management to start. And once you get that down, then you can just start expanding, and getting bigger, or buying more equipment, or whatever you choose to do. But don't think it's got to be perfect either. Like, I don't care if a few weeds are in my plot. I'm not a commercial, it's not for commercial farming, and it's not for a magazine. So as long as the deer still feed, I'm perfectly happy with it.
Right.
And a lot of weeds they'll eat too, right? So
yeah, that's true. And I think when I started trying to learn more about land management, granted I haven't had the opportunity to do it yet, this is gonna be our first year finally being able to start building some food plots. It can be very overwhelming for someone that's just like, because especially just trying to learn everything about the soil itself. You got to learn that, then trying to find the right seed that you want to plant, and then you have to figure out, all right, is it drought? It's because here in Michigan we don't get a whole lot of rain majority of the time. We go months where there's just nothing, and you add the fact of, especially nowadays, social media, you see everyone using these giant tractors and these giant expensive machines where it's like, oh, if I don't have that, I can't build a food plot. And shit, Lee Lakowski, when he first moved down to Iowa, he used a lawnmower.
You're right. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
If you have the will and the dedication to like, you know what, heck with it, I'm just going to start off with something. Just try it. You can find the way to do it. Just don't get overwhelmed. Just start very small, figure out what you're working with. And that leads me into my next question is, for someone that has an open plot. So for instance, let's use my piece of property that I have, for example. It's about 5 to 7 acres roughly. And it's flat down a little hill and then flattens out into like a bowl. And it's a bunch of grass, bunch of weeds, whatnot. What are you going to tell someone that has that type of situation?
Well, it also depends on what's around too. There's a lot that play into how you're going to set up or design your piece of property. And I think that's one of the things that has to be known, is that no two pieces are the same, right? Your neighbors dictate some of the deer movement or whatever. But, for just keeping it simple sake, of course, you don't want to disturb the ground on the hillside if you're talking, about putting a food plot in. So generally, I like to put mine at least on the bottoms and then run some cover around that middle section of the hills. And then the deer seem to bed on mine either way low if I have swamp ground next to it, or up on top of the hills looking down over top. If you get some screen, then they can't really see into the food plot, so they're gonna come up and travel down to that food plot.
Now, let's just talk about the soil when they're trying to figure out, because you got to get the pH levels correct.
Yeah, at least close in a range. Yeah, you want your biggest mistake is not getting a soil test. I'll say that. I've done plenty of throw stuff out there and hope it takes, and it doesn't take, and then I'm blaming the seed or something. I'm making all these excuses. Well, then I come to find out the ground is just piss poor and low pH or whatever. And so yeah, getting that soil test, even for a quarter-acre plot, to save yourself some frustrations. What is it? I don't know, $25, I think it was, for a soil test and a few weeks wait to get the results back. That will save you headaches, just knowing that you're actually doing it somewhat right for whatever you're trying to plant, giving it the food that it needs or the pH where it needs to be with the fertilizers and lime, just to save yourself a failure. Because when you fail a couple of times in a row, you'll start to get frustrated that, I've been there, done that for sure. And then, timing of your plots, depending on what you're putting in, goes into it also, so there's a lot of questions. And that's why I think it can be so overwhelming for people to get started. And that's, again, where this vitalized plot is a great one for people to get started. It's a blend. So it's got all kinds of different food sources and non-food sources all in one package. So you can, boom, start right there, start building your soil, and eventually over time use less fertilizer, less lime, whatever as you correct that soil. And it's a great way for beginners to get into it too. And then of course you always want to dabble off into clovers or brassicas and all that kind of stuff. But, then again, you get into a different set of requirements for the ground and what you're going to be doing with it and all that stuff, and timing of planting.
And I feel, so let's just start off very basic. Let's figure out, all right, you figured out where you want to build it because you figured out everything around it. All right, now you got your area. I feel like the very first step, though, after you cleared your spot that you want to build, first step, you got to get the pH level and make sure it's correct before you can even move on, because you don't want to start wasting time building all this or putting all the money into the seed when you come to find out, like you said, the pH levels were off, and you just wasted all that time and energy when you now feel like you got to backtrack to put lime down to get the pH levels correct.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't stopped me from putting a food plot in, I'll tell you that. I've had some pretty crappy pH levels and throw some pelletized lime on it and some ag lime, because, the pelletized acts faster and the ag lime takes longer, but it lasts longer. And none of the lime is going to be immediate either. Your soil pH isn't going to raise as soon as you spread lime and you get a good rain or you disc it in or whatever. It takes time. So I wouldn't say to not, even though if the soil test comes back bad, I wouldn't say just not to try it. It just may not be, just have lower expectations, I guess, if you will. Don't think it's going to be perfect if all your stuff isn't quite where you want it to be. So,
okay.
Manage your expectations, I guess, would be my recommendations for someone in that kind of situation.
And I feel like, though, you look at a bunch of different seeds, and yeah, if you actually have to know where you're from. So we're just going to use Michigan here as the example. It feels like you can plant different seeds at different variations of the month. I mean, throughout the year, like some in May, you can do some fall planting. Then you got frost seeding. Can you kind of break that down a little bit?
Basically most of your clovers will be like a frost seeded type or a fall seeded into some type of cover crop, like rye. If you plant rye in September, that's a decent food plot that you can do. So, to kind of go from that, you can frost seed into prepped ground. I haven't had as good of success without a cover crop, of rye or something of that nature. But prep ground, frost seeding, clovers, chicory, clover and chicory, stuff like that. And then you get into your May, where you're getting into any of your soybeans, your corns, your vitalize, of course, once your soil temperature hits the right section. So any of your summer type food sources is your May, June, early June, you want to have them in by. And then of course, at that, you're just praying for rain through June and July. roll into August, and that's most of the time, at least around me. End of July, early August is when I always plant my brassica. I guess back it up, even that you could do, buckwheat if you wanted to, not have deer don't seem to touch the buckwheat here for me. They just don't seem to touch it at all. I've done it for years, and great cover crop, but just not a good attractant. Like, that's why one of the reasons, again, why I switched to the Nitro Boost. It has actual food in it, so it tracks it more. But you can do buckwheat and then brassica in early August generally is what I like to do. And then you can roll into overseeding that with rye, and like Labor Day weekend is generally my first time that I'll do it. And then about 100 pounds per acre of rye into brassica if you're doing it, or your vitalized plot. If you have your Nitro Boost going all summer, then you're ready to spread your carbon load in that early August, crimp it and spray it and kill off the Nitro Boost so the carbon load's ready to go. So there's so many options of what you want to do for timing and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, you can get into a wormhole in a hurry.
When you say cover crop, what do you mean by that exactly?
So it's like a cover or a smother crop is keeping the weeds at bay, so like your buckwheat, for me, especially because the deer don't browse it hardly, at all. I mean, there's some browse, but not much. It gets good tall, shades out everything below it, and it's good to spread seed in and then crush over to retain soil moisture for that seed, so it germinates better and grows better. And then the same with rye is basically it's a smother crop or cover crop to where it shades out and smothers out weeds from growing. So that way, when you go to put in your seed, it's a clean stand. You can use less herbicides or don't have to till the ground up because you get good seed to soil contact. And then that cover crop lays on top and holds the moisture and covers that seed up.
So basically, it sounds like you want a taller food source to grow. And then once you kind of start chopping that down, then that's when you put the smaller ones like clover underneath it.
Yep. Clover, brassica, yeah. You can, any of that stuff that you put in your August-ish time frame, for me at least, early August, yeah, something like that. And then you can even do it in weeds. I've done it before in weeds where you mow the weed down to what I do, I think it was like 8-10 inches or something like that, like a couple weeks before I planned to plant, and then went in there and sprayed right after to try to kill everything off, and then come in broadcast and then crush down or mow over what little bit of thatch you have left to create that thatch layer to hold moisture on the soil and create a better seed to soil contact.
Now, I might have missed it because that was a lot of information. Are you planting your cover crop first and then the other crop, or vice versa?
Yeah. So buckwheat, let's say buckwheat, let's stay with that one for right now. That's a summer cover crop. So that one I generally plant the first week to 2 weeks of June. And then that way it'll go all summer long until that first, maybe end of July, early August. It all depends on rain. Again, I'm always going to broadcast right before I know there's a 100% chance of rain or something like that. So that's why I say those 2 weeks, to give yourself some buffer of some kind of rain moisture to come through, and then broadcast it into the standing buckwheat, and then go through it and crimp it and roll it. All I use is a old steel lawn roller that's half filled with sand. I don't have a fancy cultipacker or anything like that. I started for small plots and it just works, so I use it. So then your brassica that you would put in underneath your buckwheat will grow up through that buckwheat, and then that will be your fall and winter plot. And then if you're doing rye, so if you're layering rye into that brassica later in the spring, that's when you would use that as a cover crop for, if you wanted to frost seed your clover into that and then crimp it over in the spring, that would be kind of what that's used for. So it's a different timing of cover crop, if you will. And so it really depends on what you're planning on doing with it, of what one you would use.
When you're frost seeding, what does that all entail? How are you managing that?
So frost seeding is just a simple, broadcasting the seed on top of either prepped ground or into a cover crop. And then the frost comes and goes out of the ground, the top inch or two of the soil, and that creates like cracks, small cracks, and it creates soft soil on top. So it pulls that seed down into the soil and gives it a better seed to soil contact and covering. So that's why your small seeds, like your clover and chicory, that's why that does so well with it. And of course, freezing isn't going to kill the seed. Some of things, of course, can't handle that. So it's only applicable for a few things. And I can't say I know every seed that can do that. But what I've done it with is clover and chicory.
When are you generally doing the frost seeding?
Anytime after heavy snow melt, it's generally we have a thaw first or second week of February almost every single year. When that snow pack melts and is off where I want to do it, that's when I will seed, because then I don't have to worry about the seed washing away if the snow melts fast or if we get a crazy rain in the snow. I have had a couple of failures where I didn't realize that, and I was out peppering the top of the snow. It looked like pepper scattered all over the place from the clover seed, and then it melted real fast with a heavy rain. Well, I had a sweet, about 15-yard wide clover patch that was thicker than heck, but the rest of the field was, real spotty and terrible. So that's why I wait now. And then I've actually done it like even this year's, which the ground wasn't prepped good enough. I should have waited, but I did mine in March, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, because it seems like we said earlier, it seems like that's a lot of information, and it can be very overwhelming for someone that's trying to get into the land management and food plotting and stuff like that. But it seems like you broke it down very simple, and it's not, if you just learn from other people and just take good notes, it's not an overwhelming thing.
Yeah, that's one thing I'd like to say. None of this is my, ideas or experiments, or credit me for learning how to do this. This is just learning from someone else and applying what they do and use it to my situation, and then tweaking if I have to a little bit here and there. I may not do it the same as the quote unquote professionals or whatever, but I'll do it enough that it's effective and it works for me. So I think that's kind of how I've always kind of approached it. Is it's not a one size fits all, and I really enjoy learning process. So if I screw up, okay, write that down, don't do that again, right? And you learn your lesson and move on to something different. So,
and that's where you learn, is through your mistakes, and that's how you grow from it. So, all right, I know what not to do next time. So that's how you get better. That's how you get better in hunting. You just practice, and you're gonna fail. So just accept it and move on, and don't be afraid not to fail.
Yeah. And of course, that also comes with some caveats of depending on what you're doing and how much money you're sinking into it, of how much research you would do before. Like I'm getting ready to plant, probably 2,000 trees here soon. So I'm like super heavy into learning everything about planting seedlings and what to do and how to trim and tube it or don't tube it, or, all that kind of stuff now. So I like to research the heck out of stuff and learn, and then try different things. Like that's one of the things I do like, is I'll say, okay, well, I see this method worked for him and this method worked for her. I'll try both of them and see what I like the best.
And I saw that this little photo that you made here, Wednesday Whitetail, did you know? And I actually was reading a couple of them. And this one right here kind of applies to our topic here. Was deer must eat approximately 8% of their body weight per day, approximately 12 numbers of food daily, consisting mainly of browse, 40 to 60%, forbs, 20 to 30%, and mass, and 10 to 20% ag crops are a small percentage, 10 to 15% of daily intake.
Yeah, that was one of those things that it makes sense, right? You're sitting in the woods and you watch them; they're nibbling on everything they walk by, pretty much. So it's like you can tell that they're constantly intaking something, and it's just a matter of what at that time of year, which is some of the things that I use to hunt. Is what is coming in season. I've made several successful hunts after saying, okay, I know that this week of the year they generally transition over to this, food source of whatever, of course, like oaks and all that stuff. But I mean, like even stinging nettles or, any kind of herbaceous growth, when they change, I've gotten a couple bucks off of doing that. So it does apply.
And now let's kind of transition to your hunting tactics and stuff like that. How are you setting up on these mature deer, especially on Jackson, which I'm already jealous, so let's not rub that in my face anymore. But excuse me, how are you setting up and trying to find these mature deer? Or let's just not mature deer, but these trying to shoot for a world-class deer.
Well, I wouldn't say world class, but definitely some real nice bucks. Pope and Young is about my minimum standard. Of what you want to call it, 3.5-year-old, 4.5-year-old. But it really depends. I think I'm a kind of an oddball of how I do hunt a little bit, because I really journal a lot about what does are doing right now. When you start seeing what does are doing right now, the doe family doesn't change a whole lot, right? They're not like a buck, to me at least, and maybe they're different in other areas, but my area, they don't seem to be as heavy movement away from wherever, as bucks are. So when you start learning those doe groups, you can start applying that to how is this doe group feeding, how are they coming in and out, and then I use that as, okay, this is how the does are moving. What's the buck going to do to try to find them? Of course, come pre-rut, especially when he's looking to see, he's checking every doe group. He's going from each doe bedding to doe bedding. So you already have the leg up of knowing how that group is traveling. And then it's just, of course, getting lucky of either seeing it and moving in on it, or getting trail camera pictures and moving in on it, or of course, just sealing the deal when you see it. But like summertime right now, I'm always just kind of driving around, although this year I haven't got out much at all, but I'll be out in the gator, drive around the farms, just kind of see what's in bean fields, alfalfa fields. Of course, my farm, I'll pop up on, I got a grain bin in the back. I'll jump up on the back of that and glass off the back of that every now and then. I've got a couple of observation stands that are, I don't hunt out of them at all, but I can go and sit on a tree line and watch and see what they're doing. And that's how I'll kind of start my basis of the season. And then, of course, I leave them alone other than just looking far away pretty much all summer until September. And I'll go right in about Labor Day weekend, knowing that I'm going to be in most of my food plots that last time. I'll jump in and start backtracking. And that's when I'll, set a bunch of stands and get all that stuff kind of done of where I want to start from and start hunting on them, from tracking that back. And of course, I use trail cameras too, and I'll set up on, main trails coming to and from my food plots, back them up a little bit, and try to get stuff coming and going. And I also really like to use what an old timer told me it, track trap. Yeah, I think you call it track. Yeah, track trap. So basically, it's like if you see a good trail crossing across a creek or a property line or something like that, clean that trail off. I use a branch, and I'll knock all the footprints for like 10 or 15 feet from that track or from that crossing or wherever, somewhere that's distinguishable, where you put it, and then come back in a day or two and look to see what kind of tracks you have through there. And that's where I'll say, okay, well, look, I've got good activity. I'll set up a camera here, or, hey, here's a big track. I know that I've got something crossing from the property or something, and then start working in, during season or even preseason if I feel like I have to try to get in on them.
Huh.
An old timer taught me that. He told me we walked by a scrape, and he grabbed a stick and he threw a bunch of leaves over top of the scrape and threw the stick there, on top of it. And I was like, what are you doing? He goes, well, now I can know, of course, this is back before trail cameras. He goes, well, now I can know if a buck has hit this scrape last night or whatever when I come out here in the morning. I was like, okay. Huh. And then he kind of, showed me those little tips and tricks of timing things. And I don't use, the trail cameras quite like some people to really truly hunt. I use it more for, observing and just seeing what deer and animals are out. And those little things are stuff that I'll use to kind of zero in on areas that after I've gotten a picture or something like that.
Yeah. My trail camera is basically, I have 2 cells and I have 6 SD card ones. I put the cell cameras in some deep pockets of the woods where I just don't want my scent to get into, and I don't want to disturb the area close to bedding and travel corridors. I'll put the SD cards mainly on like big parts of the trail where I can just walk right there on through the property and quickly grab it and move out. And I'm just mainly using it to see what's out there. And even when it's in the hunting season, I maybe pull those cards once a month, only because I have the cell cameras now. I already know what's out there through the preseason leading up into the hunting season, so I already have a good idea of what's out there. Now it's just kind of, all right, I'm bored, got done hunting, I'm not gonna hunt for 2 days or something like that, so I might leave my stand early or something, and I'll pick them up. But that's generally how I've been using my my cameras.
Yeah, that's about the same as mine. If I can drive to it, I can drive on the gator or a bike or something and pop a card real quick. I might check it, or if I have to walk by it or near it, just like you said. But yeah, I do the exact same thing with my cell cameras. I put them in, I like to put them on the mock vine scrapes right outside of bedding. That's been absolutely killer for me of getting good pictures and getting good inventory of stuff around. So that's pretty much how I use my cell camera. So I can, just like you said, get in there deep, disturb them one time, and then leave it for the vast majority of hunting season.
Yeah. And one of my few last questions here, because we're getting close to the end of the show, is I want to ask, for someone that doesn't have the ability to do any land management or food plot, let's just say this, building food plots, where are you going to try and find these mature deer on properties where you don't have the ability to have food plots and you just have deep woods to hunt?
Yeah, I think that's another thing I'm a little different is I'm not afraid to jump right in. Like I'll get right on top of bedding and sit right outside of bedding early in season if I have to. I just try to make it happen. Just try to make it happen, because whether you're on private or whether you're on public, it doesn't matter. There's people right next to you 100 yards away that can get a crack at it just as much as you can, right? And or change the pattern real fast or whatever you think you're on. So to me, if I pretty well think that I've nailed down where a buck is bedding at, I'll get right in there and get right on top of the bedding and make sure obviously my wind is not blowing into it, but kitty corner, if you will, slightly off.
Yeah. The ones that I have in the deep parts of my woods is right next to bedding areas or in between them, or I put them in a good travel corridor area where it's in between the bedding and a water source and the food source. So I got like build a little triangle mentally in my brain. Like, all right, I'm gonna put myself smack dab in the middle of that triangle and let's see how that goes. And I've had some success, and sometimes it's kind of burnt me sometimes, but you gotta be willing to try new things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, it really depends on your area. If you have a good spot, good funnel next to an ag field, of course, set up there before you go, running deep into it. But if you're not seeing them until right at dark, of course, at that point, you got to work yourself off the field and get closer to bedding. And so I don't mind at all early season of getting pretty close. I'm probably one of the few anymore that seems to hunt bedding all year. That's my jam. I'd rather be in the thicket, the thickest of the thick, and only be able to shoot 20, 30 yards max, and only see, 5 or 6 deer, but you're going to see the right deer most of the time. So.
Right. Yeah. And this year I'm going to be trying to really push the envelope of putting more stands in deeper parts of the woods, because I have two in some good parts of the woods where it's close to bedding, but I really this year, kind of like you, is I'm putting them as close as damn near possible and not on them if I can this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've found good luck with it, especially if you can sneak behind the does. If you don't have to have all those does walk past you, there's a whole bunch of noses and eyes you don't have to worry about. We just talked about it a minute ago about how, they spot you, it seems like. So if you can work your way in back and get close, but not too close, that's pretty much how I hunt. And I've had great success all early season, all the way through to rut, same kind of hunting strategy for me.
Well, Jake, we're getting close here to the end of the show, and I want to ask, first off, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it for taking time out of your day. The last couple questions I want to ask here is, was there a story or a topic that you didn't get to share or cover tonight?
Oh, man.
Put you on the spot right there.
Yeah. No, I mean, gosh, we kind of covered the whole gamut. I feel like I was all over the map on some of it, so we'll see how it all turned out. But no, I think we did good.
I think so too. Yeah, I learned a lot. I know we got each other's numbers. I'm gonna be texting you a lot because I'm gonna have a lot more questions, man. This is gonna be my first year building a food plot with our neighbors, and we finally got permission from the landowner. So finally, it's been 18 long years that we've been just begging, please, just this be a part of the property. And he said, fine. So
Nice.
we're excited for it. And it used
Yeah,
to be an old
absolutely.
junkyard.
Oh, That's funny. I hunt a spot on the farm that is, I call it the junkyard stand, because it is basically an old junkyard, and it's crazy how the deer use that stuff and have tunnel, trails through it. So I'll
Yeah.
be interested to see how that turns out.
Well, Jake, again, I just want to say thank you again for coming on the show. I greatly appreciate it, man. So anyone that wants to reach out to you or learn more about what you're doing or about food plots, how can they reach out to you?
I'm on Facebook, but mostly, more active on Instagram at Jake_Hunts_Michigan. I just seem to like Instagram a little bit better, but I am on Jake Bollinger on Facebook too. You can get a hold of me either way if you have any questions or whatever, any comments. But yeah, that's me.
Jake, thank you again, man. I learned a lot from you, and I'll make sure to reach out to you again, man. We'll definitely stay in contact. Okay, brother?
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, man.
All right. See you later, Jake. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. A man that knows a lot about some food plots, and he's been working now with Vitalized Seeds. So make sure you go check them out. And I believe I've been seeing a lot more about Vitalized Seeds. So I think we're going to be trying them out this year since we finally got permission to start doing some food plots this year. And I'm definitely going to be talking to him a lot more about it. But again, thank you, Jake, for coming on the show. Thank you to everyone out there that's tuned into the show. I greatly appreciate it. I can't say thank you enough, and I can't say thank you enough for all the support and love that everyone's been reaching out to us. I can't say thank you enough again. Anyways, make sure you put your core in a slot machine. Make sure you help share the show. Help us get one new friend, as well as make sure to go check us out at whitetailadvantage.com. Stay up to date with what we're doing. Reach out to us on our social media platforms. You're going to be talking to me if you reach out there. So open book. You want us to come on your show? I'm more than welcome to come on anybody's show and talk about whatever. And if anyone that ever wants to come on our show here, I'm never going to say no to a guest that wants to come on and talk about whatever. Like I said, we host the show here, but at the end of the day, this is your show. We want to be here for you guys and fun to talk about whatever you guys want out there. So we are also, today was our first day on Carbon TV. So if you can, really appreciate it. Give us a high rating. I can't say thank you enough to everyone out there that has done it so far. And with that being said, we'll be back tomorrow with June 27th, Thursday, with episode 85 with Ty from Missouri. Deucer, go ahead and take us out, my man.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next